call this council meeting to order at 6 p.m. I need a motion for the adoption of minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on May 9th, 2022 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and second by Councillor Knox. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no delegations this evening, and we have no public hearings, so we're going to move right into committees. First up is Finance Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, in front of you, you'll have the report. I did bring it up in committee last council meeting. It is a proposal to subdivide. I first want to point out that the site map is there for your information. So the query at hand is to consideration of the application to subdivide part of lot 105, which is in the parish of Portage la Prairie, and the applicant wants to do it into 3 lots for residential purposes from his present holdings of 8.2 acres. So the background, as I discussed in committee meeting last time, was they proposed to subdivide the present holdings. They want to go to a 2.1 acre lot, a 3.2 acre lot, and propose a 2.9 acre lot. These lots would be serviced with septic fields or holding tanks or, of course, piped water. And they do access a municipal road, which is Old Bridge Road in this case. One of the issues, first of all, was the proposed development does lie within 400 meters of the closed City of Portage la Prairie landfill. So prior to submitting a subdivision application, the applicant did need to apply for and receive approval of environmental compliance and enforcement to construct the buildings within that 400-meter radius. So that they did do, and it was approved. The development plan for, it's in a rural residential area, so it does fit within the rural residential uses, and there's no concerns with that. The one thing that would have to happen is there would have to be a zoning bylaw change, as it is in the subject lands right now are zoned AL, or limited agricultural zone. The site area is there for your information as well, and the proposed 3 lots would meet the minimum site requirements of the rural residential zone. So some of the comments from some of the parties involved is the Environment, Climate and Parks, which is the environmental compliance and enforcement. Proposed lots 2 and 3 are approved for construction for buildings within that 400-meter radius. Proposed lot 1 will still require a consultant's report and director's approval before a building can be constructed. And I just want to read the other ones just so we're clear. Shaw does require, of course, require the easements, which is normal. The planning district recommends approval with conditions that a zoning bylaw amendment be applied for, and that's applied for later on the agenda. And then Terranet, or the land titles, 3-lot plan of subdivision is proposed. So it was circulated to all departments and agencies. There were no further comments or concerns. Community and Regional Planning does approve it, subject, of course, to the zoning bylaw amendment to rezone it from a limited agricultural zone to a rural residential zone. So that said, it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the subdivision of portion of Lot 105, Parish of Portage la Prairie, into 3 residential lots, Lot 1 being 2.1 acres, Lot 2 being 3.2 acres, Lot 3 being 2.9 acres, from the present holdings of 8.2 acres, subject to the conditions being met.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion?
Good.
All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And then the second part of the business as well is in another proposal for a subdivision. So this is the consideration of the application to subdivide 2 lots. Lot 1 into 329.7 meters squared, and Lot 2 to 329.8 meters squared from the present holdings of 659.5 meters squared. The site map is there for your consideration as well. So the applicant, which is 4046536 Manitoba Limited, proposes to subdivide the holdings, as I just indicated, and wants to turn them into 2 residential single-family lots. Each lot would contain a single-family dwelling. The lots are serviced right now with municipal services and piped water, and they also do have access to a municipal road. And from the map, you can see that it said Cochrane Street South. So our development plan, or neighborhood policy, it does fit within those, specifically 10.3, which is the infill development. I won't get into the entire of the thing, but the important thing is that there is they'd have to apply for a zoning bylaw. Proposed Lot 1 would require a variation order. Lot 1 would require another variation for the side yard requirement. Lot 2 would require variation for the minimum site requirement, and Lot 2 would also require variation to vary the minimum side yard requirement. Also, a couple of comments from some of the stakeholders. Manitoba Hydro, of course, as normal, they would require easements. Planning District recommends approval with the condition that the variances be applied for, and then Land Titles requires a 2-lot plan of the subdivision as proposed. Again, circulated to all other departments and agencies. There were no comments or concerns, and then Community and Regional Planning does recommend approval of the subdivision, once again, subject to the variation orders listed above. That said, it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the subdivision for part of RL 61, Parish of Portage la Prairie, into 2 residential lots of 329.7 meters squared and 329.8 meters squared, respectively, from the present holdings of 659.5 meters squared, subject to variation orders being met.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. And Councillor Meyer, that concludes.
Sorry, that's the end of my report, Your Worship. Thank you.
Community Service Committee, Councillor Knox, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing from Community Services this evening.
Thank you. And Waterworks Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Waterworks Committee has nothing to report at this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. And Transportation Committee, Councillor Espy again.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report at this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. And Public Safety Committee, Councillor Knox.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing from your Public Safety Committee this evening.
I'm going to move into new business. We have no deferred business this evening. First item of new business is changes to council-appointed committees, and this is Finance Committee. Councillor Buds.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to for council's consideration to approve some mid-year changes. So as we know, we do have 2 vacant positions, and so the committee structure has to be changed. I won't read through them all, but you see our outstanding committees and then the chair and second that we are all sharing these loads. In addition, the following changes to our special committees and ad hoc committees will be made, where Councillor Knox will replace Councillor Draycott on Pred, Mayor Ferris replace Councillor Wall on Heritage Advisory, and Councillor Knox, again, thank you, will replace Councillor Wall on Border Revision. So just some housekeeping changes until such time as we get through to the fall election, and then all of these committees will be all filled up once again by a new or returning slate of candidates. So it is a recommendation, an administrative recommendation, I so move, that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the changes to the committee appointments as outlined in this report for the remainder of this council term.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Next item of new business is the first reading of zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw 22-8736. This is for Nelson at Bridge Road Southeast, Parish Lot 105. This is City Planning and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor, before you, there is a rezoning application. And of course, for a rezoning application, we do a first reading and then a second and third reading later on. So the issue is to commence the zoning amendment process. So that's what we're starting now by rezoning the above listed property. Go from limited agricultural zone to rural residential zone as per the condition of subdivision 4550-22-8134 to the City of Portage la Prairie zoning bylaw number 21-8724, and by giving bylaw number 22-8736 the first reading. So the background is there. We previously discussed a little bit of it. The Portage la Prairie development states that rural residential uses, that's for your information, and it falls within that. There is also a copy of the bylaw if it passes first reading. There's a Schedule A to the bylaw for the rezoning, and there's also the rezoning sketch for council's information. Oops. There we go. So the application will be circulated to the province for review and comment after the first reading. But as per Section 7401 of the Planning Act, Council shall indicate its intention to enact a zoning bylaw amendment by giving the first reading and then proceed with the public notice as set out in Section 168. The first reading of bylaw number 228736 does commence the process as defined in the Planning Act in considering this application. It's an administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie give bylaw number 22-8736 first reading, and that public notice be provided as defined in Section 168 of the Planning Act.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that concludes my new business report, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Next item, new business, is the April building reports. This is for information, and this is Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Once again, I always enjoy bringing the permit total and the numbers. It shows some of the economic activity that's taken place within a region. Once again, Council, for your information, there's both the city and the RM. As usual, I draw your attention to the combined totals as we look at it from a regional perspective. So if you didn't hear it on the news report in the last couple of days, the actual number of permits are down, dollar value is down, but the dollar value down is not significantly. The only thing I want to point out at this point, the rest is there for your reading, is that if you look at commercial new, there's still 7 permits that have been issued for year to date with almost a $5 million dollar value to it. So it does show you that there's some commercial, significant commercial construction going on, in addition to some of the ancillary things that you see in the rest of the report. And if there's no questions, that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Next item, new business, is the Poplar Bluff Industrial Park budget, and this is Waterworks Committee. Councillor Espy.
Oh, do we have one before
Your
that?
Worship, I think we're
I'm sorry.
jumping ahead here.
Next item, new business, is the award for tender for the supply of chemicals for the water treatment plant. This is also Waterworks Committee. Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The issue is to award the 6-month contract for the supply of various chemicals for the water treatment plant as specified in tender number 22 OPS 015. The tender followed our usual process and closed on May the 10th. The contract is to supply the water treatment plant chemicals for a 6-month period from June 1st to November 30th. The tender award should be issued for each individual chemical based on the 6-month period. Typically, this contract is for 1 year. However, due to the volatility in commodity prices and price risks associated with projecting costs a year out, it was decided to shorten the contract to 6 months. Bidders are required to guarantee submitted prices until November 30th, 2022. One bidder was unable to meet this term of the contract and was disqualified. Tender has followed the procurement tender process that incorporates sustainability and best value bid. Some of the chemicals are only shipped in bulk quantities, and in some cases, we must purchase more than 1 year's required quantity. For other chemicals, we will have significant inventory on site, and a full year's supply has not been tendered. This results in an estimated annual cost indicated differing from the tender price. The tender states that quantities indicated are for the comparison purposes only, and the city makes no guarantee amounts to be purchased. Of note, all the water treatment plant chemicals saw appreciable increases this term over the last term. As a whole, are totaled an approximate 30% increase across the board. This will be considered when developing the 2023 budget. The overall cost of all the tendered chemicals is $894,658.34 for a 6-month period. Of the 2022 chemical budget is $1,380,233.89. It is the administrative recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the contracts for the supply of treatment chemicals for the water treatment plant for a 6-month period as specified in tender 22 OPS 015 to the following companies for the respective chemical product for their submitted tender price excluding GST as follows. Lime, Graymont, Western Canada, Inc., $440,283.80. Potassium permanganate, ClearTech Industries, $9,418.50. Chlorine, Brentag Canada, $33,794.64. Fluoride, ClearTech Industries, $17,820. Polyaluminum chloride, Border Chemical Company Limited, $187,515. Phosphoric acid, Univar Canada, $29,073.40. Dry amniotic polymer, Univar Canada Limited, $30,645. Sodium hydroxide, Brenteg Canada, $124,100. And calcium thiosulfate, Cleartech Industries, $22,008. And I so move.
Moved by Counselor Espy and seconded by Counselor Knox. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Next item of new business is the Poplar Bluff Industrial Park budget, and this is Waterworks Committee. Counselor Espy, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The alternatives are to approve the award of reservoir construction and provide additional funding as required to complete the water supply line. Approve the award of the reservoir construction and construct only the amount of pipeline that current budget allows, or approve the award of the reservoir construction and do not proceed with the construction of a pipeline. In partnership with Manitoba Water Services Board, the arm of Portage la Prairie and Yellowhead Regional Water Co-op, City Council approved $3,814,806 to contribute to the construction of a new water reservoir to be in the Poplar Bluff Industrial Park, as well as a new water supply line. The MWSB issued this work as two separate tenders, one for the reservoir and one for the supply line. The total budget for this work was $16,100,000, including engineering servicing fees, additional work allowance, and contingency. Final bids were received, and the lowest bids on both tenders were over the estimated budget. Project totals are indicated in the attached table. The priority is the reservoir itself. The existing supply line would have sufficient capacity to fill the reservoir for current day use. However, it is not sized for projected increased demands in that area, and there's no redundancy in case of maintenance. The project could proceed with the award of construction of the reservoir and leave three options for the supply line work. One, based on the current funding structure, the city is contributing 23.69% of the financing for this project. To complete the full scope of work for the supply line, the city of Portage la Prairie would need to agree to contribute an additional $830,913 for a total contribution of $4,645,719. As this money will not be required until 2023, the additional funds can be budgeted for in the new year. Two, another option is to award the reservoir tender and add the minimum pipeline work required, which includes the low-pressure sewer lines to the west of the reservoir, the Yellowhead pipeline, and the connection from the existing 450-millimeter supply line to the reservoir. Stantec estimates that the minimal pipeline work would be approximately $1.7 million. For additional $500,000, the pipeline work could reach across the diversion. Administration does not recommend this option, as it would require retender if the contractor does not accept the same unit pricing, nor is the province able to commit to any additional funding over their share without Treasury Board approval. Three, another alternative is to proceed with any pipeline and tender work is not to proceed, with any pipeline or tender work in the future with when additional funding can be secured. In this circumstance, although the current project would then be under budget for all parties, and current grant funding from MWSB would return to the general fund for redistribution to other projects. With consideration for the current market conditions and inflation projections, if any portion of this project was delayed or deferred, the cost to complete the water supply line in the future will almost certainly increase beyond the current overage, and the preference from the planning group is to construct the reservoir and water supply line in its entirety. The RM and YRWC have agreed to approach their respective councils for additional funding, and the MWSB will have to go to the Provincial Treasury Board. Treasury Board approval will require more than 30 days that the bidders are required to hold the pricing. To award the project, the MWSB needs to know there is funding committed. There is an expectation the Treasury Board will approve the provincial share of the overage, but if not, it is anticipated it could come from the 2023 MWSB project funding allotment. The province is unable to give that assurance, but there is confidence the local politicians will lobby if needed for it to come through either way. It is in the region's best interest to advance the province's overage proportionately so that tender may be awarded as soon as possible. For the city, it would be an advance of $830,823. All municipal partners must agree for this option to be carried out. A breakdown of each funding partner with their respective contributions as well as the required advance funding is in the following table, and the table is attached. So, to open the discussion, it is the administrative recommendation the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie support the Manitoba Water Services Board awarding the tender for the additional pipeline for the Poplar Bluff Industrial Park and approve an additional cost of $745,094 to be budgeted in the utility reserve in 2023, and that council authorize the budget allocation of additional $745,094 being the province's proportionate share if needed. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Espy and seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions, comments on the motion? Councillor Butts?
Thank you, Councillor Esper. Just to be clear, the difference from the report and the differences that you're reading is can you just outline what those are?
I would ask administration to speak on that.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Buds. The number that Councillor Espy moved is a 50% cost share between the RM and city's proportional share. So council will recall we had a cost increase in this project already, and there was an agreement between the RM and the city that we would split that additional cost 50-50. This additional cost, we've taken, Councillor Espy has taken that same approach, and that breaks it down to the $745,000 that Councillor Espy has mentioned.
Thank you very much. I think given the regional demands that this project represents, I think it's a very fair way to allocate these increased costs, so fully support it.
Further questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to echo Councillor Buds' comments, and that I certainly support the motion as well in the way it's been presented.
Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Our next and last item of new business this evening is the award of the 2022 pavement program tender. This again is Transportation Committee. Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The issue is to award the tender for the 2022 pavement program. The tender of the 2022 pavement contract was advertised at Merck's Construction Association of Rural Manitoba, Winnipeg Construction Association, and the city website. The tenders were distributed digitally to 7 contractors. The tender closed on May the 10th. Only 2 bids were received. The tender has followed the procurement process that incorporates sustainability factors, otherwise nothing outside of our normal procedure. Messyton Construction's schedule anticipates a start date of June 1st, 2022. However, it will take some time after the award to obtain the performance bond and finalize the contract. The 2022 pavement contract includes the following work: Meehan Avenue, Wilkinson Crescent to Armstrong, Lorne Avenue, Royal Road North to 3rd Street Northeast, Howie Avenue, Royal Road South to 3rd Street Southeast, Seneca Street, Bridge Road to 300 meters west, 4th Street Northwest, path extension at Fisher Avenue, 21st Street Northwest path extension at Gigot Avenue. The overlay program, the 2022 overlay program budget is $618,000, with an additional $29,000 being covered from the 2021 water main renewal for patching the excavations in the roadway on Seneca Street, for a total of $647,000 to complete the project, with the contract tender price of $663,383.33 net of GST being higher than the pre-tender estimates. The remainder of the project will be paid for with recently announced provincial funding. It is the administrative recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the 2022 pavement contract as specified in Tender 22 OPS 019 to Messyton Construction Limited for the tendered price of $663,383.33 net of GST. And I so move.
Moved by Counselor Espy and seconded by Counselor Meyer. Any questions, comments on the motion? Counselor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Really, the only question that I have on it, first of all, it pleases me to see that it was, or if it passes, that it's a local regional contractor that would have it. The only question I have, and maybe administration is not able to answer at this point, but it said that only 2 bids were received out of 7 that were sent out. I just want to know, is that the normal pattern year after year? Do we see less than normally tendering on it?
Through your worship to Councillor Meyer, we typically see about 4 bids every year, so this is less than normal. There has been some companies that work in this field go out of business or combine, so there might be less players in the field, but this is less than we traditionally receive.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions on the motion? Counselor Knox?
I just have a question about the list of where we're doing the work this year. I did have questions about the portion of road next to the causeway on Crescent. Maybe why that's not on the list, if somebody could speak to that.
Through your worship to Councillor Knox, I'd ask our acting director of operation, Mr. Phelps, to speak to that.
It was decided that that section road would not be done this year due to the construction on Saskatchewan Avenue West and how that's going to disrupt traffic. If we rip up the Crescent at the same time, you're basically going to shut down both major routes to the west end of the town. And we didn't believe that that was right to do at this point. So that is on the list, but we want to get some of that Saskatchewan Avenue West construction completed first.
Great, makes
Thank you.
sense. Thank you. Thank you.
Further questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We have no old business this evening. So council is adjourned at 6:27 p.m. and we're going to move right into committee. We'll call committee to order at 6:27 p.m. First up is Finance, Legislative, Property Committee. Councillor Buds.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Planning Economic Development Committee has nothing to report.
And Community Service Committee. Councillor Knox.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing from your Community Services Committee this evening.
And Waterworks Committee. Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Waterworks Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. And Transportation Committee. Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
And Public Safety Committee. Councillor Knox.
Thank you, Your Worship, and nothing from your Public Safety Committee this evening.
Thank you. And the committee is adjourned at 6:28 p.m. Thank you for coming out, everybody.